it would be nice if it would stop fucking raining so I could enjoy the sun on this, the longest day of the year.
Yeah, it's been raining a lot lately. I like woke up at 5 o'clock this morning and it was raining and it like didn't help me get back to sleep.
Oh,
It was
was worthless.
It was
today.
a real pain.
Mm-hmm. Living in Florida, there are two things always true. It is always thunderstorming.
Yeah.
And everyone is always saying, we're in a drought. We haven't had rain in months. And I'm like, well, it's literally thunderstorming right now. So I don't know what any of you are talking about.
Two things can often be true. Those two things are hard to be
Doesn't
true
it feel
together.
like everyone's always like, we're desperate for rain? I'm like, it rained yesterday.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristen.
This is So I'm Watching This Show, your twice weekly pop culture podcast where we talk about movies, TV, music, and more. And as always, this is a spoiler show. You have been warned. Although I don't know why there would be any spoilers for this show, this movie. It's a delightful romp through the Swedish countryside.
Just through Scandinavia.
Mm-hmm. I am very excited for this.
Yeah.
It has been a long time coming.
Yeah.
2 years in the making. It is the 2019 folk horror film Midsommar, directed by Ari Aster.
Yep.
Yeah, it came out in 2019. I remember being really excited to cover it for Midsommar, but they released it in midsummer, which I think that's an issue for a lot of people.
Why?
Well, Midsommar is like the 21st, 24th of June.
Sure.
But people think it's the middle of summer, which is like July 20th.
No, it's the beginning of summer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the middle of, because it's the longest day.
Sure. But it's
you
like
get into
the
like
first,
the astrological.
yeah, it's
and
the
like
first
all
day of summer.
Regardless. So we were going to cover it last year, and then we were off for the month of June.
Yeah.
So we did not get the chance to cover it. But Midsommar has always been one of my favorite holidays, and we've made a big to-do about it on at least the first 2 years of our show, and now the fourth year of our show. And I just think, everyone's so big on Halloween, and Halloween's great. I love Halloween, but I'm like, why doesn't fantasy ever get to have a holiday?
I like Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm. That's whimsical.
Yeah.
So
I like pink things.
I've like adapted Midsommar as my fairies and folklore and magic and stuff. And so, yeah, so I'm excited to finally get to see this movie. It was Florence Pugh's sort of like
big break.
Yeah, it was her Anya Taylor-Joy in The Witch. Which that's kind of a good comparison.
Yeah.
Because it's Ari Aster. No. Damn it, I do this every time.
It's Eggers.
Robert Eggers.
Yeah.
Robert.
They're
one and the same in my mind.
This is Hereditary. Ari Aster is Hereditary.
Well, which I haven't seen that either, and I kind of want to see it. I know she screams "I'm your mother" a lot.
Yeah, we can do that for Halloween this year.
Or Mother's Day. Which is already passed.
Hey! I am your mother!
So yeah, so Florence Pugh, from what I know, goes on a lovely vacation with her friends, and she is so overjoyed by the beauty and whimsy of Sweden that a tear comes to her eyes. And I cannot wait to see what the fairies look like in this one.
No.
I think they're going to be very floral.
You're going to be so disappointed.
It's really bright. It's really cheery. I'm super excited. So...
This is so much effort for this.
For this movie that's 2 years old.
I'm obsessed with us, though. This is amazing.
I was most excited for you to come.
Well, that was Midsommar. We're going to say Midsommar.
Yeah, that's fine. Why am I the bear?
Because I'm the May Queen.
Well, I thought my bear could also have a flower crown, but you were very persnickety.
There's only one May Queen.
Yeah, but the bear is cool. The bear wants a flower crown too.
Yeah, do you want to?
Well,
I'm stuck with this, but
it's warm in here, and you can't see my face with the hood on.
So I'm going to see how long, because I don't think I could take this off if I wanted to.
Okay.
Can you take me seriously at this point?
Yeah. Like this is
not the weirdest thing you walked in on me doing.
Come on. This is like not even the weirdest thing you've worn this weekend, probably.
So it's actually been several days since I watched this.
Yeah.
And I feel good and bad about that. My reaction would have been way more existential if we had recorded immediately after.
Yeah.
I've watched it twice. Okay. I loved this movie.
Yeah.
Love is a weird word to say about this movie, but I loved it.
It's so good.
I want you to elaborate. I mean, yes, but
this is an excellent movie. It's horrible, but it's excellent.
I was worried that it had been, like, I had missed the window. Like, I was worried that it had been overhyped, or it had been, like, I don't know. I somehow managed to avoid spoilers.
Yeah.
I mean, at a certain point, there's an assumption as to what's going to be happening.
Yeah.
There was an assumption that there was going to be some form of human sacrifice, and I knew there was a ominous bear.
Yeah.
It's a bear.
Okay, for starters, I was high when I watched this. I had kind of a like, what the fuck? Like,
Sure.
Why not? And I was just sort of like, if it gets to be too much, I'll just turn it off. And at no point was I ever consciously like, this is too much, I need to turn off. But I definitely was like, watching it. I genuinely don't even know where to start. Like,
Well, because you get them confused a lot. It does feel kind of like a Robert Eggers movie where it's very atmospheric and you're very thrust into this environment that's not your own and that you're not used to and stuff like that. And so it's very all encompassing. Like you don't get a break from that environment.
it was so heavy.
Yeah.
This was one of those movies that when it was over, I couldn't get enough of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just sort of went and laid down in my room and thought about it.
Yeah.
And in particular, the like horrible parts. Like,
well, okay, yes, because for me, if I'm being totally frank, the most horrible part of this movie is the opening.
yes.
That is a straight up tragedy. It is.
And it's shocking. You somehow don't see it coming.
No.
I didn't
really see it coming. And Florence Pugh, her like groaning and shrieking about the death of her entire family.
It was so primal.
So primal. It's like up there with, we've talked about a couple, like the Cedric's dad from the fourth Harry Potter, and then like Ewan McGregor from the end of Moulin Rouge. It's just this like guttural.
Angelina Jolie from Alexander.
That's not as poignant, but whatever.
In my womb I carried my avenger.
In my womb. It's such a guttural, horrible, like visceral feeling. You feel her dread.
Shocking.
Yeah.
And but you also feel like a fool.
Yeah.
When it's
for not realizing
that's what was happening.
Yeah.
You're just sort of like, oh God.
Yeah.
It's so dark, literally and metaphorically.
Mm-hmm.
Because I noticed that. I was like, I knew this movie was famous for being sunny. And to start it in like the dead of winter and the dead of night.
Yep.
And she's in this dark apartment by herself, just full of IKEA furniture, which
it is like one of the saddest apartments I've ever seen.
But it's just also because that's why I preface this by saying that I watched this twice, and I watched it on Wednesday and we're recording Sunday.
Yeah,
because once you go through the motions with it, at least for me, I ended up in a place where I did with The Witch, where there's actually a way to watch this where it is a farce. Like it is hilarious.
Which I loved, because when I was reading all of the trivia on IMDb, one of the things was that this was not met as a horror movie in Scandinavia, the Swedes were just like, that's a really good black comedy. Thanks, Ari Aster.
I'm seeing like there's parts of it where when you're watching it again, knowing what's happening,
Yeah.
it's hysterical because it's not subtle.
No.
They tell you every step of the way what's happening, but you're sort of like, surely not. No, that's not what. The way that the audience is thrust into into Dani's perspective, and the way that she's trying so hard to connect with these men, these 4 men, and they just couldn't be bothered.
Well,
like,
Pele likes her.
I mean, yeah, but it's not for good reasons.
No, well,
do you think he wants her?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he wants her, and I also think
like would he have killed her if the cards worked that? You think he wanted her as May Queen?
I think he knew she could be.
Okay.
And so when he was the only one that was like, "Oh, you're coming with us."
And it's
Yay.
so creepy. The camera's so still, and she's in the mirror. It's like a wide shot, and she's reflected in the mirror, and he's just like staring with this like weak grin or this like half grin. It's so unnerving initially, and then
he is unnerving. He's unnerving the whole time because that scene where they're at Mark or whoever's apartment, and she goes to sit next to Pele, and he is just making like 5 solid minutes of the most deliberate eye contact with her. It is so unsettling. But she doesn't know it because she's not looking at him, but he is uninterrupted staring at her.
Well, and you kind of, at least I did, you kind of spend 2/3 of the movie falling in love with him a little bit.
Oh, he's very handsome.
But in an offbeat way where, at least for me, it's like I wouldn't necessarily, I mean, maybe in the real world I would go right towards him.
Sure.
But in Hollywood standards, it's like he's not unattractive. But it's that kind of, it's very Lost, where it's that kind of thing where it's like, I could imagine falling in love with you on an island.
Sure.
Like I could imagine being put in this like weird situation, this like heightened alternate reality where we like fall in love and live the rest of our lives together. And then you realize that's actually what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
It's like, because she's being gaslit like 5 ways over.
Yeah.
And it's another part that was really difficult for me to swallow is that they're all awful.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But their punishment doesn't suit the crimes.
No, I don't think so. I mean, they all suck. None of them deserve to die.
But also,
none of them deserve to be murdered.
It's that part of you that's like horrified when you read about like, well, because it's like in ancient Greece, it's like if you lived 51% of your life bad and 49% of your life good, you went to hell. Like there was no, or like the any kind of like Thinner or Drag Me to Hell or whatever, where it's just like Cabin in the Woods, and it's like when you don't realize that, when you don't know the rules to the game you're playing,
sure, or you don't know you're playing a game,
yeah, and that's like watching them in this, and we the audience are getting this like sinking suspicion, and the rest of the Hårga are so matter of fact about it, because that's another thing that like I was like, I love how just sort of nonchalant they are about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And especially that scene, it like works after the Arastupa or whatever. Atastupa. When she's like trying to calm down Simon and Connie.
Yeah.
And she's like, but you don't understand. This is a gift for us and stuff.
Yeah.
Instead of getting old and dying in pain and fear and shame, we give our life as a gesture.
A gesture.
Before it can spoil. It does no good dying, lashing back at the inevitable. It corrupts the spirit.
And I start buying into it. I'm like, oh, actually, other cultures, when you look at it that way.
So that's the thing, is like, you can make an anthropological argument for this. Which Josh for sure does. Josh and
Christian.
Then Christian goes in on it too, in a really fake, disgusting way. But
there's a deleted scene that's even worse.
Fuck Christian. He deserves it.
Make your point. We'll go to Christian next.
Make my point about Christian?
No. You were about to say something.
Oh, no, just anthropologically, you can be like, this is not my culture. I'm not raised this way. They're raised this way from birth. This is what they're used to. It doesn't feel weird to them because it's in service of their gods
But
and
also
their community.
the American, or maybe, I mean, I know Sweden is Western, but the arrogance that those rules don't apply to them,
Mm-hmm.
that they're like, well, they'll kill each other, but they're not going to kill me.
Sure.
And it's like, why not?
So we were, full disclosure, watching the kill count YouTube before we did this. And that was actually really fascinating when what he was saying about Pele, because he was like, he sort of does have this barely veiled contempt for all of them except for Dani, because he literally Christian is like, can anybody join in? And he's like, well, you're American, just go shove your way in there. And it's so funny. So funny.
I really like American jokes.
Yeah.
So, okay, Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to argue that he's not terrible. My issue is I related to him in a deeper way than I think I was meant to, and or most people do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a lot of people interpret his crime as being shitty, as being bad,
No.
as being... His crime is he's weak.
Yeah. He's a weak, horrible person who throws his friends under the bus at the first opportunity.
Josh, on the other hand, he came to bed with us, and when we woke up, he was gone. And if he did take that book, I just pray you understand, we don't associate as friends of his or collaborators or anything. We would just be so embarrassed to be connected to this in any way, shape, or form.
His friends?
Yeah, Josh.
Oh, okay,
when
yes.
Josh,
Okay, gotcha. I understand what you mean.
Josh and Mark have like gone missing. They're
Mhm.
murdered. And he's just like, I wouldn't call us, you know, we wouldn't be considered friends or collaborators or anything
Okay,
if
yeah,
he's
yeah,
done that.
I know what you mean.
Under the bus.
There's something so funny about how he just does what they tell him to do.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, there was a part of me that I saw myself in that, where it's like, I could literally see myself being in a place where I'm like, okay. And I'm like, they're going to kill me.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
What am I going to do now?
yeah. So it's Jack Raynor. I want to give him, he's, Florence Pugh aside, he's the standout for me. He's so good in this movie. I watched an interview with him.
Outside of Florence Pugh, he's doing the most with his character.
I watched an interview with him. He is so charming.
Mm-hmm.
He's so sweet. Because, again, Christian, it was like, I mean, obviously he was attractive in that, like, sure. But at no point or very few points in the movie was I like, oh, man, I'm, like, super into Christian. But with 30 seconds of this interview, he's a dreamboat.
Of course.
And he's so charming. And he, like, one of the interviews I was watching, it was him and Florence, and the woman was like, is it hard to watch the movie? And he was like, there's a scene in particular that's hard for me to watch. And Florence just starts laughing.
You know, there's one particularly difficult scene for me. There's a few particularly difficult scenes for
The
me,
best
really,
thing is
but-
that everybody's going to be like, I wonder what scene
I wonder
that
what that is.
And then when they watch it,
And
they're going to be
then they'll
like, is it this scene? Is it this scene? And then they'll get to it like, oh, that's the scene.
And
Is it the bear?
no, the sex scene.
Oh, okay.
And he just talks about how utterly humiliating, because it's all there.
Sure,
Like,
yeah.
And at least they let it be his last day on set.
Oh, that's nice. Although, let's just...
There's a sense of impending.
Well, sure, but I also... No, I mean, I don't want to make it about this, but like, how many women with sex scenes do you think they left it? They like let them do it on the last
No,
day.
usually
you know what
sex
I mean?
scenes are like the first
thing you get it out of the way.
But they'll like those women in the scene were the women that are on set.
Yeah.
And so it was like the entire shoot, he knew the woman that was going to be thrusting him.
Oh no.
Like they met, like, we're going to do this in like up 2 months. And he was like, she really went at it with a gusto I wasn't anticipating.
I'm obsessed. That's so funny.
It's so weird. It's so fucking twisted.
Yeah.
It's and the balance he strikes between Ari Aster strikes.
Yeah.
Between showing us and not showing us,
Mhm.
the things we see and the things we don't.
Mhm.
I am horrified by the Mark thing. We
Yeah.
don't know what happened. And he made a mistake.
Yeah.
He's obnoxious,
Yeah.
but that's a mistake any of us meant.
Well, especially because so we were watching this with Rachel and we really traumatized the fuck out of her. But she was like, none of these Swedish people are giving them any kind of instruction on how to behave during this sacred ceremony that's happening. And I was like, no, that's true. Because it just looks like a dead tree. And so it's like, nobody was like, don't piss on that dead tree. Like, that's our ancestors, which I guess on the one hand, it's like, maybe it makes it easier for them to kill them if they make a mistake
that's
unknowingly.
what I was wondering.
Yeah.
I was wondering what the plan is going into this, because they obviously, I mean, they had to have known that they were they say the part of the ritual is that to kill 4 outsiders and 4 actual members of the community.
Yeah.
And then the 9th kill is a wild card
The
that
May Queen chooses. Yeah. So in that sense, for me, it was very like Get Out.
Very.
Where it was like, you're going out to these, to like, our young people are going out to these places to recruit more young people to bring back so we can kill them.
I love that this is Scandinavian, because we have such rose-colored glasses when it comes to like the Scandinavian way of life.
Yeah.
And the Scandinavian people and stuff. And
which is another thing that he toes the line really well at, because this is beautiful. It's a beautifully done movie, and it's very bright and sunny, and like all of the clothes with the embroidery are very cool. But that yellow A-frame building.
What's that building over there?
It's like a sacred temple, but no one's allowed in there.
No.
Not today.
I was suspicious the whole
time.
time.
Yeah, I would have gotten through the gateway and be like, nope.
No, sir, I think I left the oven on. Gotta go.
I left my herring in the car. I would be nervous if we were like somewhere in South America, like in the jungle or whatever. I'd be like, maybe this is some like tribe that's going to like sacrifice us to their god.
Yeah.
But being surrounded by like white Swedish people, I'd be like, meh. And I mean, not to make it personal, I don't know that I'm saying, like, in spite of my language of I'd be like, but it's the way that, like,
well, it's like
the cultural
understanding
disarms people.
Scandinavian stuff feels a lot more relatable to us as white people, I think, is probably, I definitely get what you mean. It's like, it's closer to what we know.
I'm saying it's highlighting the white ignorance, the white arrogance and the white ignorance.
Yeah. Where they're just like, I'm here amongst my peers.
Well, but it's also, it's like, that goes back to the point that I made initially, where it's like, they at no point are themselves nervous.
Yeah.
Except for Connie and Simon do get nervous.
After the Attastuppa, they get really nervous. I thought it was actually, I guess Connie and Simon are both ethnic as well.
It's kind of rough.
But what I was gonna say is, at literally no point is Josh nervous as the only black man in the room. He's just like, because it's like another layer of protection for him, because he's like, I'm here as an observer. I'm not participating in this. Little does he know. He absolutely is. And honestly, I mean, I still don't necessarily think all of the punishments fit the crime, but he was taking photos of sacred text.
Yeah, he was he was instructed not to.
And that's wrong. He deliberately went against something he knew was wrong. But weirdly, he has the least hellish death, in my opinion. Because he just, I mean, I guess we don't know how Mark actually died, but he just gets bapped on the head.
Yeah.
He's basically gone.
I mean, I would like to believe that's what happened to Mark, too.
Yeah.
But... And we hear what happens to Connie, but we don't. Well, that's the deleted scene, is they go to like, they drown Connie.
Yeah.
And there's a deleted scene.
Because her body is like
waterlogged.
Yeah.
They like go to the ceremony to do the drowning, and like a child volunteers, and they end up not following through with the ceremony.
Oh.
And that's a scene where Christian's a little bit more like jerky with Dani.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
She's just trying so hard.
She is trying so hard
to relate, to get anything out of these men.
Well, especially because, I mean, she is effectively alone in the world now. And so it's like, I understand at the beginning of the movie, their relationship is deteriorating. And then she has this like unthinkable tragedy. And you can't break up with her after her entire family just died. I 100% get that. But then it's like, 6 months later, and he's still in it, even though he's not in it. And then he just at every turn is like ignoring her. He forgets her birthday. He like doesn't really want her to come.
Well,
they like, I also read a thing where it was like, they like don't physically touch. They like 4 times in the movie, they never kiss each other. And it's like very interesting.
They're like his friends are like trying to get him to dump her.
Yeah.
And he literally says, but what if I regret it?
Yeah.
So it's that whole like he holds on to her because he doesn't.
Well, he's got sex on tap still.
And he wants the option.
Yeah.
But because that whole Sweden, God, fucking watch look. That whole the trip to Sweden, and he's like, "Well, we hadn't decided," and she's like, "You have tickets."
Yeah, you have plane tickets, and oh god, that
and then
scene,
she ends up apologizing.
That scene is heartbreaking because he just is like, "I'm gonna leave," and she's like, doesn't want to be alone. She's so alone. Because you were like, you had to readjust your expectations about whose side to be on, and I was like, I know that she's being needy, but like if ever you're allowed to be needy, it's in this circumstance specifically. You know what I mean? And he was giving her absolutely nothing and letting his dick friend Will Poulter totally dictate how he behaved to her in a way that was like really gross and horrible. And then it was like, even once they're there in Hårga, she like is still trying and like trying to make the best of this trip and everything, even though it's like not really working out for her. And then it's like, he's like, okay, yeah, babe, whatever. How do you keep incest from happening? And it's just like,
you know what stands out the most to me though is they do the drug. She doesn't want to.
Yeah.
He like browbeats her into doing it. Hallucinogens are not something you do.
Yeah.
Well, period. But especially if you're not mentally.
Yeah, if you're not into it.
If you're not mentally there. And there's a scene there, it's like hitting, and they're all starting to trip. And I think it's Will Poulter, I think it's Mike, where he's like, "You guys are my family."
Yeah.
And she just kind of, it hits her sideways.
Yeah.
You guys are like my family. You're like my real actual family.
Because it's like, I feel like that was intentional.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
in the script and the direction, because it's like she's been trying to get this from them for presumably 6 months.
Well, Mark is also not talking to her.
And then the second, well, but it's like I think it's how little it actually means to him.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
I think when
also,
he's high, sure,
Yeah.
it's like because it's convenient.
Mm-hmm.
But it just really sort of triggers her in a way, because it's like an aversion therapy or something.
Oh,
it's like
okay.
they have to get high in order for her to hear what she wants.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And that was a weird tangent, but
We didn't really talk about Christian's descent into this, like,
he's just
with Maya.
He's just so worthless.
Yeah.
Like, and again, in a way that I found too easy to relate to.
Because it's like at this point in the movie, it's like he is on a downward slope and Dani is on an upward slope within the like confines of this culture.
Well, they're touching her. They're looking her in the
Yep.
eyes. And there's this weird contentious debate online amongst whether or not the Hårga are good guys or bad guys. And it's like, human sacrifices, they're bad guys. But
I think it's more, sure, human sacrifices, but I think more than that, they just are what they are.
well, I mean, no, it's a cult. It's unhealthy. It's bad. But also, I am looking at this very deliberately as a fantasy.
It's also working for them.
I mean, maybe we haven't actually explored.
Sure.
Well, because that's another thing that a lot of people don't talk about in the videos that I saw, where it was like, this is a ceremony that's done every 96 years. So there will be entire generations that don't
Yeah. Where it's like
experience
they
the
have some
ceremony.
kind of festival every year, but they only do the whole thing every like 90 years or something like that. Yeah.
And I mean, if they're committing suicide at 71 or 72,
Yeah.
then I mean, there's entire generations that don't experience the ceremony.
Yeah.
No, I was saying I am looking at this as a work of fantasy, and I'm looking at it cathartically. And so I remember there being a lot of talk about her smile at the end. Like, what does it mean and all this stuff? And I'm like, good for her. Because she gets to decide who's the last piece. And we see that she chooses. We don't witness her choose Christian.
Yeah.
I do wonder what her thought process is, if it is as deliberate as I'm mad at you and I have power now. So I'm like, or does she just kind of, I'm curious,
Yeah.
because we don't see her do it. So I'm curious how
don't
we
see her
get
do
there.
it. I wouldn't imagine. She doesn't seem like that type of spiteful person. So I can't imagine her thought process was, I'm angry at you, so I'm gonna
I'm choosing you.
sew you in a bear and
I'm
put you
smiting
on
you.
fire.
Yeah.
But I do think I think maybe the thought process was closer to, they have accepted me. I'm not going to kill one of theirs in order to, and also I already have nothing left. You're the only thing I have
She's
left.
also sort of in a daze. So
She's sort of in a daze. She's
because
absolutely dehydrated.
You were like, so many of these people need glasses of water.
Like a gallon of water. And all they keep doing is taking drugs. But I think it was more than that, where I don't think it was just about him. It was more like, if he's the only thing I have left, I'm going to keep feeling beholden to him in a way that is not healthy for me.
Because the catharsis, I don't think she was intentionally like, this will be super therapeutic for me.
No.
Because I think that's what the smile is the realization that it's like, fuck you.
Well, and that's the thing that I found so fascinating about this movie is literally the entire time, Dani is the only one who is actually like emotionally getting anything from this trip. Because Mark is just like, I want to get laid by a milkmaid. Josh is like furiously masturbating onto paper for his fucking thesis. And Christian, as we've discussed, is just totally worthless. And so she is actually like embracing the beauty of it. And she kind of almost falls apart after the Atastupa. But then Pele sits down with her and she kind of comes to accept it in a way, and then literally as soon as she goes with the women and she puts on the linen dress, she is in it.
And that's where cults, that's how they work.
Yeah. She's also the only one of the five of them who wear the clothes. Mm-hmm. The rest of them are all in their American street clothes.
I thought it was very strange that they were all in like plain colored t-shirts and like brown pants. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I just wondered if that had anything to like, I don't know what any. I
don't know, just like, well, they're just like comfortable travel.
I mean, there was no
clothes.
graphic tees, there was no button-up shirts. It was like.
I think that was probably an Ari Aster and the like costume design decision, because this doesn't feel dated. Like obviously, like Josh has a Mac, like a laptop, but it doesn't feel dated in like a. You remember those when we all wore trucker hats, you know.
The scary things that happen in this movie are shocking and horrific.
Yeah.
But they are actual. This is a story. Mm-hmm. This is a plot and a story about these people.
Yeah.
And the shocking, horrific things that happen are motivated by the story. And like, it's not like jump scares. It's not like.
You see all the scary stuff mostly coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like the entire movie is just sort of filled with this dread because neither the travelers nor the Hårga are treating it as seriously as we know they should be.
Sure.
And so there's a part like you feel kind of crazy watching the movie. Yep. Like you're kind of like.
Which I think puts you really well into Dani's headspace because she is like essentially broken and they kind of put her back together. I understand why she stays.
For me, it's like I'm happy for her in breaking the cycle, but I think it's a cult, and I think that she's the newest member.
Yeah,
she traded one bad situation for another, but I mean,
again, agreed. However, what if this is healthier for her? You know what I mean? She's gonna be with Pele and have babies and jump off that rock at 72.
Maybe wait until the next festival.
Yeah, right.
Because they're not gonna give her a heads up.
Yeah.
But
I see, that's the thing though, is I believe she was embraced.
Mm-hmm, she was.
So I don't think she would be considered an outsider anymore. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Because the scene where they were like grieving with her, like.
Oh my God.
It's, I remember seeing it in the trailers and thinking, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
And you feel that way watching it too, but also you're kind of like.
But in the trailer, I thought it was mocking.
I thought it was like labor.
Also a little bit, but in the movie, I mean, honestly, same. That's the moment, because it's like the whole time, and Pele says like certain things that end up making sense later. And when he asks her, after she freaks out about the Atastupa, when he asks her, do you feel held by Christian? You know, and like, my parents died too, and I was like held and comforted by my entire community. I think that's a very important moment for her in the acceptance of this life, because she has never been held by anyone in that capacity in her life. And so for these, like, basically people she met 7 days ago to be so deeply committed to helping her carry her pain I think is very intoxicating
Mhm.
for her. And it works, and they just shriek with her. It's amazing. This movie's great.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, also, there are times when people do things that they know they shouldn't, or they know is not the smartest or the safest or the
Yeah. Again, though,
touch the flame. I mean,
what was she doing that was better before? I'm like, you know what I mean? Like,
I know Ari Aster talked a lot about The Wizard of Oz, but it is a very apt comparison.
Sure.
When we do end in a "you didn't need my help" sort of place, like, and because he said he wanted to be like a Wizard of Oz for perverts, like,
yeah,
up to and including the Scarecrow, and like,
I mean,
it's
crazy.
so upsetting. Like, there's just so many disturbing. It just masterfully woven, like in ways that it doesn't feel like you're reading a checklist of like body horror, even though that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of really horrifying body stuff, but I don't.
But they're also on so many drugs, like the whole Blood Eagle thing. It's like, I don't know what of that is real.
Yeah,
like,
and it also, like, you mean maybe Christian just imagined it?
I mean, I think that like the lungs breathing.
Oh yes, that is like it basically is like either Christian, they like just did it and Christian watched his like final breath or whatever, because your lungs need your diaphragm in order to work, so it wouldn't, because they're pulled away, it wouldn't work quite the right way, or he was high and he imagined it. The breath. It's
a thing. I saw it on Vikings,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things that mercifully there's a handful of stuff in history that we have no actual, like, scientific is not the word. But
there's
like,
no anecdotal evidence.
well, there's no proof.
Yeah.
There's no like physical proof that it ever happened. It's only in like legends and stuff, and mercifully the Blood Eagle is one of them, where it's like we can never prove that's.
So is the Atastupa. It's like it's in a lot of like mythology and stuff, but there's no like recorded instance of it happening,
and no fossilized like reason to be like, oh, this clearly was yada yada. But
it's a lot.
And just the bear thing, it's so mocking.
Yeah.
Like, it's so serious to them, like when they're casting out the evil, but it's just like insult to injury.
Yeah.
Ugh. No, I was obsessed. There's so much more to say, but I think I've said all I'm going to be able to in this.
Yeah. I don't think I will just watch this movie, but I think I will maybe watch it once or twice again.
Well, when it was over, I was like, I need to own this.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know how many times I'm going to watch it, but this is something, especially with the Midsommar connection, how much I love Midsommar. And we'll be back next year with a light fantasy, maybe. I don't know. Or we can just...
Or The Wicker Man.
We can continue the trauma and go into Neverending Story, but...
Oh, God. Rachel from a different room just shouted no, so...
No, next year I think I want to go back to Merlin. But I was like, I need to own that, and like I said, I just found myself sort of upset. It's macabre is such a good word, because it's the part of you that just wants to wallow in this stuff sometimes. Like, I've told this once before, but it's like, I remember when I was a kid, there was like several things in a row, stories in a row that I like heard that involved hangings. And for like a year when I was like 11, I had this weird obsession with hangings. Like, I remember kind of like drawing pictures, but then hiding them, because I was like, this is really weird.
I shouldn't be doing this, probably.
Yeah.
Just kind of sit around all day, draw pictures of
hangings.
What?
Is it sort of like the thing where, like, when you're young, you think like things like quicksand are going to be a real problem?
I mean, kind of. There was just something about it. It just like, it shocked, but also because especially like with hangings, it's like the neck, which is, sensitive, but also somewhat erotic. Like, I don't know. I just was weirdly, and this kind of did that for me.
I get that.
I was like,
for
there's
sure.
like a weird, just perverse element that I'm also sort of like fascinated by.
I like also her smile at the end, because seeing it out of context for 2 years now, seeing that like just shot of her smiling out of context, I thought it was like she was forcing the smile.
I kind of thought that as well.
Seeing it in context, she is legitimately really smiling. Like she's happy for the first time in her life.
And maybe this is more abstract than most people would, but for me that isn't so much the character, the human Dani smiling, as it is the movie smiling at us.
Sure.
For having just endured it.
I think
that's sort of how I
both.
feel. Like, I just sort of like, oh, is Ari Aster mocking us with this smile?
I mean, a little.
That's more what I went with it, where I was like, what part of this is real? And what part of this was if these visions did offend?
Yeah.
I try to reference that so many times and I don't know it. I need to
these
remember.
visions have offended.
Yeah.
Think of this and
all is mended.
If we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended.
I think it has that quality.
Yeah, no, it 100% does. I agree.
Could you imagine if this movie ended with that?
Just like on screen, or just like a puck walks through. I mean, not no.
Change approved.
Yeah. No, I loved it.
Take me out now.
Yeah. Okay. Also, just like, if you don't want to watch this because it sounds too gruesome, just pick any other Florence Pugh movie. She's amazing. If
you think that this might be too much for you, it is, and you already know too much. You're already too far.
Yeah.
You're too deep.
You're in too deep. Just watch it. And then go watch every other Florence Pugh movie. That is the last thing I'll say is I am so happy to live in a world where I get to watch her career because she is one of my favorites right now.
Also, William Jackson Harper, it's funny actually because this character is similar to Chidi. I mean, it's
academic
with ethical like conundrums.
Yeah,
but he is different.
Mm-hmm. It's way a departure from Chidi.
He's also like Josh is just hot in a way that like Chidi's cute. Yeah. Oh, you think Chidi's pretty hot?
I think Chidi's hot. I love.
I mean, by the end, but
I love William Jackson Harper. I think he's great. Yeah, I would say him and then Florence, Jack Rayner, and Wilhelm Blomgren are definitely the standouts of this movie for sure. Yeah, I loved it. I believe this is streaming multiple places. If you watch, it's on Amazon Prime. Definitely watch it. I would say this is in my like list of favorite horror movies now. It was just like stunning from
especially like I
finish.
said, now that you can watch it as like a comedy, it gives it another life
for sure.
Because that's when you start getting into showgirls territory where it's like there's so many different ways you can watch this movie.
Yeah. Because I did even think parts of it were funny already, even on the first watch. So, definitely highly recommend it. You can follow us on Twitter at So I'm Watching or Instagram at So I'm Watching This Show. We also have a website, soimwatching.com, which links out to everything, including our Patreon, which we are currently making some changes to. So definitely go check that out. You can join for as little as $1 and you get access to pretty much everything. And then just rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes or YouTube or wherever you listen. And that's it for us. Bye.